Good morning, everyone. This is the Citizens Climate International Group Leaders Call, and we have so many people from all over the world on this call. I dare not mention one country because I know I'm going to forget some. But I'm really happy that you're all here today. I hope you are well. I just would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we stand with Ukraine. So just take that moment. Oh, I can feel your love. You are all so amazing. Thank you. There's an agenda in the chat. It's welcome and introductions, which is what I'm doing right now. Our special guest today is Charles Hodgson and the Because IPCC Project. And then we'll do some housekeeping and reports from around the world, actions completed and country actions. And yes, please introduce yourself in the chat. Way to go, Kwame. I love how our Africans are always so, community wise. And here you remind us to, acknowledge our relationships around the world. And then we're going to do a first time ever. We're going to do a laser talk on one of these calls. So that's our introductions and our welcome. I am proud to introduce to you and happy to introduce to you a fellow Canadian. His name is Charles Hodgson, and he is retired and in his mid-60s. And during his working life, he was in technology, engineering, and management. He's dedicated the last dozen years to climate action, and that's how I know him too here in Canada. And he was primarily at the local level as a full-time unpaid staff member at Ecology Ottawa in our national capital city here in Canada. And there in the 2010s, he was successful in leading pressure on the municipality to adopt climate change management plans for both mitigation and adaptation. And if I'm remembering correctly, Charles was also at Citizen Climate Lobby Canada's first conference ever in 2013 in Gatineau, Quebec. So yeah, that was wonderful. And I've been to the IPCC plenary meetings, and I know that a lot of people don't understand the IPCC. So when I heard what he had been doing, I knew that he had developed a resource that we all needed to use in our work. So through reading on climate change, Charles recognized a general lack of public understanding of the history, methods, and achievements of the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So he produced a graphic novel to fill this important gap. It's entitled Because IPCC. And of personal note, Charles is currently spending time caring for his family, particularly his mother, who suffers from dementia. So thank you, Charles, for taking time out twice today to be with us in the morning and in the evening. I hand it over to you.
It's an honor. Thank you for letting me speak. Forgive me. I'm going to read. I hope it's written in a natural style. So first, I want to talk to you about why I think the graphic novel is important. Years ago, I had a dinner party, and one of my guests was a climate change denier. And we had a big argument, and I was furious. And when I woke up the next morning, I was still furious. He had all the answers, and I could not articulate why he was wrong. So I made it a personal mission to understand climate change, top to bottom, back to front, because I never wanted to be at a loss for words again. I didn't want to get in that argument again and lose it, because I knew he was wrong. As you know, there is a lot of information out there on climate change. There are books and movies and podcasts, you name it. And they cover all sorts of topics: climate justice, denial, the physics, ice cores, tree rings, economics, refugees, politics, the list goes on and on. But one thing that I felt was not well covered, as Kathy says, was who is the IPCC? How do they go about their work, and what have they achieved? For me personally, as I dug deep into climate change, I found it overwhelming. I grappled with climate doom. Sometimes I needed to do a reality check, and I asked myself, can this really be true? Everyone else is going on as if everything's normal. This is a sunny day outside. Can we really be marching towards the possible collapse of civilization? And it was the understanding of the science, mainly through the IPCC, that brought me back again and again to knowing, yeah, this really is true. So I wake up every morning wondering if I'm doing enough to fight climate change. And I'm sure all of you are just the same. And it was in that spirit that I took on this graphic novel project. I hired the artist and I co-wrote the script. I think when people understand the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they have a greater certainty. They ask different questions and they refuse to accept excuses. So let me tell you a little bit about the graphic novel itself. It's called Because IPCC, and no surprise, it's about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And I made it available for free and under Creative Commons license. And that means that you can copy it, republish it, even change things. You can see it at www.BecauseIPCC.science. I'll repeat that URL later. The story is a hopeful one with a positive tone. It's set 100 years in the future when we have theoretically solved climate change. It leads the reader through some IPCC history, like winning the Nobel Prize, and then it walks through the scientific method, peer review, scientific journals and citations, before getting into how the IPCC does its work and celebrating the magnitude of its achievements. The book emphasizes how the IPCC hears from all sides, both from industry groups and from public interest groups, as well as from nations who are under threat from climate change, like islands that will disappear as the waves of the sea levels rise, and countries whose entire economy depends on the sale of fossil fuels. And then the book ends celebrating what an amazing achievement it is to have so many groups with so deep an interest come to agreement in the final reports. So my objective is that when people hear about IPCC reports like these AR6 series coming out, they realize these are not like any other reports that they've ever heard of. It's not something from a think tank or even a peer-reviewed journal. An IPCC report has been agreed to, officially agreed to, by virtually every scientist in the world who has expertise on the subject. Plus, it's been agreed to and officially agreed to by virtually every government in the world. So I'll take a few minutes and talk about the state of the project. We've gotten endorsements from some top-level climate activists like Bill McKibben and Naomi Oreskes, as well as many top scientists with deep experience in the IPCC, so you can be sure that it's accurate. We've had volunteers translate the graphic novel into about a dozen languages, many of which are posted for free on the website. I repeat, BecauseIPCC, all one word, .science. One volunteer was so enthusiastic, he translated, fundraised, and printed 55,000 copies of a Slovakian version, and he distributed those for free to schools and as newspaper inserts. Other volunteers produced a video, and it's on YouTube. And I've had some interns doing social media. So what would I like you to do with this information? I'd like you to do 1, 2, or 3 things. At a minimum, I'd like you to read the graphic novel and consider using it in your work. Again, that's BecauseIPCC, all one word, .science. If you like what you see, please consider a second step. I have about 4,000 printed copies in English. And if you'd like them as handouts, let's talk about how I can ship them or some of them to you. The booklets are about 36 pages. They're free, but I will need some help in covering some shipping costs if we can do that. Lastly, I'll tell you, as Kathy said, my mother's dementia is causing me to need to withdraw from leading this project. So getting other people who might step in as a leadership role will be very helpful. The project certainly needs someone to drive social media. And if a climate action group adopted the whole project, they could use it as a fundraiser or for publicity. So you can contact me at BecauseIPCC@gmail.com, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. And that's, other than hold it up, that's all I had prepared.
Oh, no, that's perfect. Thank you so much. And I'm already going to take dibs on about 60 of those books. We're going to Ottawa in May, and we will be lobbying, and I'll talk to you, Charles, and we may
Excellent.
need even more, but we might like to bring them as possible gifts to our MPs if they'll accept our gifts. So thank you so much. Maybe even 100, fingers crossed. So I would like to give you all about 5 minutes to ask questions. And Charles, that was perfect, by the way. Thank you. So does anyone have any questions at this point?
I have a question. Approximately how long does it take to read the novel? Like, what kind of commitment are you asking from the recipient?
Yeah, the main thrust online, 15 minutes is a long time online, whereas if you hold a little thin booklet like this, it doesn't feel so long. Every sheet, it's 36 pages. So the main body of it is 33 pages. So it doesn't take that long, maybe 15 minutes if you're taking your time, 20 minutes, that kind of thing.
Great.
Any other questions?
Just possibly, if I could, an observation that when CCL does its lobbying, we have a leave behind that we develop, but this tool, this novel that you have, would seem like a really great leave behind to make sure it gets in the office of each MP that we lobby. And given its format, I could see that if it was around, people might be, the hard copy, people might be really encouraged to pick it up. And I'm sure.
Thank you for saying that. I think that the reason I did it was because I thought, people don't understand this. What's the best way to communicate? A graphic novel might be easy to digest, and how much can I boil it down? And I'll also say that certainly this is less important internationally, but in Canada, I've partnered with a charity, and this is the perfect project. It fits right in with the traditional laws of what charities can fundraise for. So if any group wanted to adopt the project, they could adopt the fundraising capacity with it as well, with a charitable donation aspect to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of education missing out there, for sure. Are there other questions?
Yes, Kati. David Michael from Abuja, Nigeria. Oh, sorry, from Accra, Ghana today. So I was just thinking how possible and how useful it will be to simplify the IPCC report in form of documentary or like videos, so that it's easy for a lot of people to just watch, like, movies to further understand it even better. What do you think, Sir Charles?
So I've steered away from the actual findings of the IPCC and focused on I'm so impressed that this group of volunteer scientists have worked for so many decades to prove and drawn the governments of the world together into the mix to be able to agree. And so I focused really on the process and the volunteerism and the consensus that they've raised, not so much on the specific results that they've found. And those results obviously have changed over the decades that they've been working. And the IPCC is notoriously a conservative organization because they look to get such consensus. Up until the last few years, people who were resisting action on climate change could point to the uncertainties that were in the IPCC reports. They weren't the most forward in talking about the threats. It's only in the last few years where things have become like undeniable, completely undeniable, that the IPCC has become much more vehement. So to produce these 36 pages, obviously someone with a bigger budget and a team could do it much faster. But it was a year and a half between the time I started thinking about this and I actually had the artwork. And then, so it takes a while, and the complexity of the findings actually in the IPCC reports, I mean, there are thousands of pages. It's not something you can boil down quickly, easily. Certainly, it would be a challenge, I would think. That said, picking out a few high points and doing infographics on it, absolutely.
It's
Hello,
which
Patrick.
languages is it translated into? Because you're getting questions in the chat.
Okay, sorry, I have not been following the chat. I will quickly find the translation page. So the ones that I have posted at the moment: Welsh, German, Spanish, French, Dutch, Portuguese, Slovak, Swedish, and Chinese.
Bravo.
But there's no reason we have to stop there. If other people want to produce it in other languages, I have a worksheet where the English is on one side, and so you can do a direct translation in another column. And I've had a mix. These, you'll see an unevenness of the quality of some of those different translations, because initially I got, for instance, the French translation done, and then I had the original artist involved in placing the text on the blank artwork. Whereas more recently, for instance, for Welsh, it's been some volunteers using other software, so they don't quite look the same. But I do have the blank artwork as well. So if people want to do a translation, I can give you a text version of the original English, and I can give you the blank artwork as well, so you can fit into bubbles or put your own bubbles on it.
That's wonderful. We'll go Kwame, and then Josh.
Yes. Greetings from Kumasi, Ghana. I hope you can hear me.
I can, yes,
And,
thank you.
Very well. Let me use this opportunity to welcome Mr. Charles Hodgson. You're welcome, and you have done a great work. What I would want to suggest is that in Africa, we are natural storytellers. In the evenings, we sit around and we share issues. And so my question is this: would it be possible for those of us who are in volunteer leadership to have set copies of your books so that we can break them down into our own traditional and cultural settings, so that in the evenings we can share and create stories out of them naturally? Thank you. Secondly, let me use this opportunity to welcome my very good friend and leader, David Terengua, to Accra, Ghana. I am yet to meet him myself, and I hope that by Saturday I will be with him by myself. Thank you so much, everybody. You're welcome, Mr. Hodgson.
Thank you for asking the question. So the answer is yes. As I said, if you just want the words and you want to work up a story from the words, I'm happy to share a document with just the text on it, but the full graphic version is also available. I've set it up on a website so that it just scrolls the whole thing, but you can also download a PDF with the graphic novel on it. Both of those are completely free. Anything I send you would be free. If there's some other way that I can help facilitate it, I'd be happy to try.
Very well. Thank you.
Great question. And Josh, do you still have a question?
Hello, nice to meet everyone, especially Mr. Charles. So I would like to ask one question. Since Mr. Sir Charles Hodgson has already said that the graphic novel can be distributed freely, can we translate it to our language, Filipino or Tagalog, since it will greatly help spread awareness here in my country. So that's all.
So I'll answer the question. by saying that here's the process that has happened in the past. People have stepped forward and said, I would like to see this in my language. And I send them a Word document, which has all of the English on one side of the column and a blank space for them to put the language that they're interested in the other side. And at the time, I had some interns working, or I raised some funds to get the artists to then take those translated words and place them in the appropriate spots on the graphic novel to produce a translated version. I'm trying to reduce my involvement, and so my interns have finished their placements. So I would probably ask a little more effort from the volunteers. I can give the, I mean, if you look at a page here, you can see that the there's speech bubbles with the text in there, and I can give the images of the same. I can give images with no text bubbles at all, or images with blank text bubbles, and then someone. When you start looking for volunteers to do this kind of thing, it's not hard to find them. The people are enthusiastic to participate. I called for some voice actors, just normal people, to speak into their phone, read the script into the phone, and then we edited that together and put the images to the background to make a video. So you can certainly anything you can imagine doing with this material, I'm happy to let you do.
You're so generous. That is so generous, Charles. My father-in-law was an IPCC scientist for the first report in 1989, 1990. So I've always known about the intricacies of this, but I know the rest of the planet does not know that, it's agreed upon. Everything in that document, that 4,000-page document that came out last week, is agreed upon by all the governments in the world that belong to the United Nations. They sit in plenary and go over everything. And like just the statistics alone for last week's report, I'm going to put it in the chat. I mean, it's 270 authors, and then another 675 contributing authors with 34,000 references, and over 62,000 expert and government review comments. I went to the plenary for the IPCC in 2017 to determine the chapter headings for this report. It took 5 days just to determine the words. I had blisters on my elbows. I did not know that could happen, sitting there in plenary like this for 5 days. So, it's a phenomenal, global piece of work, and you have honored their work so deeply. You've hit the nail on the head. You have done the planet a great service, and I'm very grateful for your work. Thank you so much, Charles.
Very kind of you to say so.
Okay. Way to go. I'll see you in just under 12 hours. Anybody else want to say goodbye and thank you? Just take off your microphone. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. We're getting into the nuts and bolts of what's going on. But thank you so much.
I think I will listen in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm just reading it now, and it's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello, Kathy. Yes,
yeah,
please
hello.
Please inform Mr. Hodgson that I am lucky. I have successfully downloaded the PDF copy of the IPCC right now.
Okay, wonderful. So yes. Wonderful. We have a lot to get through this morning. First, I think I'd like to talk about maybe give you all 5 to 10 minutes to share reports from around the world really quickly, because there's actually like over 20 of you on the call. Actually, no, I'm going to do it the other way around. I'm going to go through the housekeeping and then we'll, So think about what you would like to share at the end of the call. And I'm going to go through our just general housekeeping items, which is in the chat. Okay, so the G7, a group of 7 countries in Germany is meeting at the end of June. It's a climate change G7, which has now been overshadowed by what's happening in Ukraine. But the world has been invited to join a climate club. And this is a transformative moment in our time where we can ask the G7 to start transforming our economy. It's a climate economy. So what we've got going here, and we can talk about it a bit more, but I am looking for people to help us write a G7 open letter, which we will launch maybe in May, most definitely in June, where we're going to be asking specifically for carbon pricing to be part of this, and the equitable carbon pricing that we have to really consider it. But we'll do it in a way that makes sense to everybody across the planet. So it won't be through the Canadian, North American sort of perspective. We want to include all your perspectives. So look, if you're interested in being part of that, text me here in the chat, because this is being recorded and I will be able to get that, or just look for call outs for our very first international action team, where we're going to build an open letter to the G7 and have people around the world sign it. So that's item number 1. David Michael, do you want to add anything to that? Because this is David Michael's idea, not mine. So would you like to add anything, David Michael?
Yeah, Kathy, thank you for making it very open. I have nothing to add other than to request group leaders here to just assist and volunteer to help us draft such a letter. We are in this together, so let's do it together. Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so, and about a year ago, we started having our own informational sessions here at Citizens Climate International. And I want to tell you a true story. We actually got 2 CCL Canada groups out of the last informational call. We've been seeking to have groups in Saskatchewan for years. And somebody from Montreal showed up on the call, and there was people from Saskatchewan on the call, and then before we know it, we had a group in Saskatoon and Regina. So this is a wonderful way to push. So when you see our news blasts go out to people to join our informational calls, consider forwarding it out to your members as well, so that they show up, and then show up on one of the calls. Maybe pick one call that you'll be on. So don't give them all 3 in all the time zones that drive you crazy. I'm so sorry, but there are 37 time zones on the planet. So you're going to have to reframe it a little bit for your own country, but can't stress how I can't say enough at how you can use these informational calls to send new volunteers, or to activate them, or to find them. And it's a great way for them to get trained up for what we're doing. So, and they occur on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. And you are welcome yourself to join them, because I always try to keep it as up to date as possible. So it does change every month, trying to give you some news from the W7 and the G7, which we're gleaning. So any questions or comments on that point? So more housekeeping. All right, so we actually got somebody Clara Fang, who has helped us write a survey, and we're now in what's I think the 2nd stage of who we are at Citizens Climate International. We've laid down a beautiful foundation of 76 countries, or with 144 nodes of CCL chapters across the planet. This has been it's been a heavy lift. It's like a starter phase to get Citizens Climate International off the ground. But once you get that foundation laid down, then we have to learn from what we did in the past 5 years. So if you would like to fill in that survey, there it is. It's not gone out to Canadians because it is more focused on the international thing. And they have a lot of our data, but Canada, who are Canadians on the call, you are welcome to fill this in as well. But yeah, it's as to help CCI develop the next stage of what we're going to do. What's most important? What do you need? Where are we serving you well? Where could we serve you more? We really would appreciate your feedback. So